Heyo, welcome to a Team SNG deck profile. Today we've got a guest in doing yet another profile, and that is Chris Tullo. He's going to be doing his Metalfoes Yang Zing profile. While I got your attention, I'm going to ask you guys, make sure you leave us a like, leave us a comment, and leave us a subscribe. We're almost at 200 subscribers, and I am so excited to announce what I have planned for the channel going forward once we hit that big 200. So help us get there. That all being said, you know what? I'm not the star of the show today. I'm going to hand it over to Chris Tullo. He's going to tell us about his deck, and then he's going to give us a card-by-card breakdown. So, Chris, tell us about your Yang Zing Metalfoes.
Yes, thank you, Chris. This is my Yang Zing Metalfoes, one of my older decks, which I've recently renovated with the new Metalfoes support that's come out. And yeah, let's jump right in. So I start with running one Chewin, Light of the Yang Zing, level 1 tuner, and 3 of the Jiaotu, Darkness of the Yang Zing, the level 2 tuner. Solid supports for Yang Zing. Light, when, like all the other Yang Zings, which I might get this out of the way with, when they're destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, you have the option to summon out another Yang Zing with a different name from your deck in either attack or defense, which is dependent on whether the monster that is destroyed has 0 attack or 0 defense, as they alternate. Chewin, having 0 attack and defense, when it's destroyed, it allows you to summon out a Yang Zing in either attack, doesn't matter whether it's got attack or defense. If it's in the graveyard while another Yang Zing is destroyed, it can summon itself back out, which is always good. Jiaotu, on the other hand, is a better starter to go for if it's the only Yang Zing in the monster zone. You can discard 2 Yang Zing cards from your hand to summon out 2 Yang Zings from your deck, one with 0 attack and one with 0 defense, which basically means it can go into, it's a 1-card synchro monster. And that in itself is such a advantage when you're going for big plays, which the deck can do pretty well. And with that, next on the monsters, I run 1 Pialo, Wind of the Yang Zing, level 1. Apart from the generic Yang Zing effect, as I said earlier, this also has the additional ability, which you can give to the synchro monster summoned using this card. It doesn't have to be Yang Zing synchro, it can be any synchro monster, as long as it's synchro summoned using Wind, which is that synchro monster becomes immune to spell effects. Next up, we run 2 of the Bix, Water of the Yang Zing. Other decks might bump this up to 3. I personally run it 2 just for ease. And what this one does, makes the monster immune to traps. Just like Pialo with the spells, the monsters can't be touched by trap cards. Then we get into our level 3 Bian, Earth of the Yang Zing. Again, running this at 2. Now, this one gives a new immunity. Monster synchro summon using this card is immune to battle destruction, which means that it can't be destroyed by battle. Simple as that. It's great when you can plonk something in defense and it just can't die. And then finally, for this kind of effect, we have Swani, Fire of the Yang Zing. I run this card at 3, partly because there's Metalfoes engine in here as well, which benefits of the fire, but also because it's a level 4, which is very good for stable for a synchro. And the synchro monster summoned using this gains an extra 500 attack and defense, just for that extra boost to beat through things or to hold against things. So that's the main Yang Zings. Then the 2 left, we have, I run 1 Zifraxi, Treasure of the Yang Zing, and 2 Zafranu, Secret of the Yang Zing. Now, I start with Zifraxi. When this is summoned using Yang Zing, or if it's pendulum summoned, what it can do is it can target another Yang Zing you control, and it makes that a tuner, or treats it as a tuner for a synchro summon. Then, if that occurs and it's allowed to go through, it then puts itself back into the main deck, which means it's recyclable as a pendulum scale 1 and as a level 3. So it allows you to make some quick synchro summons. And, a lot of decks don't run it, but I think it's quite useful and pretty fun. And then Zafranu, Secret of the Yang Zing, is the level 6 defensive Yang Zing. It has 2/6 defense, which is the highest of the main decks. Also, being 6, it's quite good for going into a quick level 8 synchro summon with Jiaotu, as it can be summoned by Jiaotu from the deck. And what this one does, if it's destroyed by battle or card effect, then it can allow you to add a Yang Zing spell trap from your deck to your hand. So unlike the others, instead of being destroyed, it's some of that monsters. This one, when it's destroyed, it allows you to add a spell trap. And that's it for the Yang Zing monsters.
I must say, I've
There we
always
go.
hated playing against your Yang Zings. They all float, which makes getting rid of them awful. And the fact that they all grant the synchro monsters different abilities means I gotta pay so much attention when I play against them. Because if I'm not paying attention, I don't know what I can hit your monsters with. It can be such a
Yes,
pain.
exactly. Yes, especially when the synchro monster itself has additional effects. I
Yeah.
might just point this out right now as well with these additional abilities. They're not effects given to the monster. So if you use Effect Veiler on a monster which has been Yang Zinged, we'll call it Yang Zinged, it will still have the abilities given to it by the synchro monsters.
Yeah, I often learned that the hard way.
Everyone does. Right, so that's the main deck. Yang Zing's out of the way. So let's go on to the next part of the formula, the Metalfoes. So going from level 1 upwards, we have one rare Metalfoes Bismagir, a level 1. It's an effect monster, which is unusual for Metalfoes, as most of them are normal monsters in the deck. All of these ones have the same pendulum effect, which is once per turn you can target one face-up card you control, destroy it, and if you do, set a Metalfoes spell or trap from your deck. This one also has the additional effect as a monster. If this card on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can add one Metalfoes monster from your deck to your hand during the end phase, which can be pretty useful if you're trying to set up a fusion summon during your opponent's turn or trying to go for the next turn. It is a scale 8, 0 attack and 0 defense, but it's a pretty useful card. Next up, I run 3 of the Metalfoes Steelen, which is level 2. Has the same pendulum effect of destroying to set Metalfoes cards, which set off the Yang Zings. And it has 2 on defense, 0 attack, and yeah, it's a scale 8, and with no effects, as does the next one, which is Metalfoes Silvered, level 3. This is a scale 1 this time. This one has an attack of 17 and a defense of 100. Next, I run another normal Metalfoes Gold Driver, scale 1, 19 attack, 500 defense. Again, pretty good for going into synchros and for fusions, that one. The last of the normals is Metalfoes Volflame, level 7, scale 8, and has an attack of 2/4 and a defense of 2k. It's a good, solid attack monster for Metalfoes, especially with getting them out quickly to just beat down your opponent or to fuse away. Then we have Parametalfoes Mechcaster, one of the newer cards. This is a level 7 effect pendulum monster with a scale 1, but it also has the additional effect of if this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can add one Metalfoes pendulum monster from your extra deck to the hand, but you cannot activate that card or use that card or any card with the name to place in the pendulum zone for the rest of the turn, which is good for recycling off the top of your extra deck back into your hand. I have bumped this up to 2 with recent ban list, where I did used to have it at 1, and I used to run the next card at 2, which I've dropped down to 1, which the last Metalfoes from the main deck is Metalfoes Vanisher. This is the highest level. It's a level 9 with 2/9 attack, 19 defense. Has a different pendulum effect, this one, which is if a monster you controlled is destroyed by battle or card effect except during the damage step, you can add one Metalfoes card from your graveyard to your hand, except Vanisher. And you can only use this pendulum effect once per turn. Which, again, speaking to recycling, which is something Yang Zings love to do, it is fantastic to try and bring cards back, Metalfoes cards back into your deck, especially once you use them. Yeah, it's great. And the other super thing it does is, which is targeted more for Yang Zings now, while this card is in your hand, you can target 2 face-up cards you control, including a Metalfoes card, destroy them, and if you do, special summon it. So blow up a Yang Zing and the Metalfoes, summon it out to get the Yang Zing effect to go off, and if the Metalfoes effects warrant it, they can go off too. And the last thing this card can do, if this card is special summoned by the effect of a Metalfoes card, you can target one monster your opponent controls and banish it. So that's the main deck sorted.
Yeah,
Next up is spells.
What I like about the way you've built this, actually, is the fact that the Metalfoes pop any face up. So the Metalfoes in the spell and trap card zone trigger the Yang Zing monsters, which then floods the field with Yang Zings, and then triggers the Metalfoes, and so on and so forth. And I think it's a thoroughly interesting design.
So, yes, spells. I run one of the new Metalfoes Fusion, Metalfoes Fusion, that is, which allows me to fusion summon a Metalfoes monster from your extra deck using one monster from your hand, from your field, and or from your extra deck as a fusion material. It's Metalfoes Fusion. I don't really need to go too much into it. Allows me to fusion summon. It can shuffle itself back into the deck to allow me to draw a card. You know, it is what it is. Then I run one of the full Metalfoes Fusions, which is the quick play, which allows me to fuse during my opponent's turn. Then I run one Yang Zing Path. I felt in this deck with the amount of Yang Zings I run, one is all I really need just to target 3 Yang Zings in the graveyard, put them back into the deck, and then draw 2 cards. I figured that was one is all I need, especially as I have a way to recycle it. I run one Call by the Grave, because it's Call by the Grave and it's a 1. And I run one Twin Twisters and one Double Cyclone. Then on to the trap. I run one Metalfoes combination. If this card is destroyed, it allows me to add a Metalfoes monster from my deck to my hand, which is pretty good. Also, if a fusion monster is fusion summoned, I can special summon a Metalfoes monster from my graveyard with a lower level, which is always quite good, especially if you're fusioning your own fusion monsters to summon out something and one of them is a lower level. It'll go to the graveyard and then it allows you to come back. So you get 2 fusions for the price of 1. I run 2 Metalfoes counter, where if a card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon a Metalfoes from your deck. So basically a little Yang Zing effect in Metalfoes trap form. The other thing it can do is if it's in the graveyard, you can banish it to add a Metalfoes on top of your extra deck to your hand. Just to give you that little bit more versatility if you need it. You can't do this the turn it's sent to the graveyard, but turn after, it's a perfectly fair game. And then finally, I run 2 9 Pillars of the Yang Zing, the counter trap for Yang Zings, just because it's searchable from Secret, and yeah, it's very, very good. And it's certainly stopped a lot of plays, especially with the ability that it can negate the activation of spells, traps, or monster effects. It doesn't destroy it, it just shuffles it back into the deck. And then I destroy Yang Zing, which then allows me to get my Yang Zing effect off to summon out again. So, yeah.
Yep, troublesome trap.
That is the main deck. So, going to the extra deck. We'll start off with the fusions. I do run 4 Metalfoes fusion monsters. So, I run 1 full Metalfoes Alcahest. Great level 1 card. Made with 1 Metalfoes and 1 normal monster. What it does is during my opponent's turn, it can take one of their monsters and equip it to itself, and then it gains attack equal to that monster's defense.
It makes me think of Relinquished.
Yes, it is. It's basically like a mini Relinquished in itself.
Yeah.
And for Full Metal Alchemist fans out there, it's pretty much Full Metal Alchemist. Next up is level 7, jump a bit, to Metalfoes Mythilium. 1 Metalfoes monster, 1 Pendulum monster. 2 6 attack and 1,000 defense. What it can do is it can target 2 Metalfoes cards in the graveyard and 1 card on the field. Shuffle those targets from the grave into deck, and if you do, then you can return that target to your hand. Next up is the new fusion, which is Metalfoes Azortlis. Its pendulum effect is if a face-up Metalfoes card you control is destroyed by card effect, except during the damage step, you can target 1 face-up card you're on the field and destroy it. Then its monster effect is if this card, especially someone from the extra deck, you can target 1 card your opponent controls, shuffle 2 face-up pendulum monsters from your extra deck into the deck, and if you do, destroy that card. The other thing is, if this card is in the monster zone that's destroyed, you can place it in the pendulum zone. So if it dies, then it goes into your scale zone as a scale 8. And then finally, for the fusions and Metalfoes, is Metalfoes Orichalc, which is just a personal favourite of mine, with a 2/8 attack and 2/2 defense, just requiring 2 Metalfoes monsters. If a Metalfoes monster you control attacks a defense position monster, it inflicts double piercing damage to your opponent. And then if it's destroyed or if it's sent from the field to the graveyard, you can target one card on the field and destroy it. So yeah, it's a pretty good trade, I think. So we get into the synchros, which is the main hold of the deck. So we start off with our Herald of the Arclight, our level 4 synchro. Do is any monster sent from the hand or main deck to the graveyard is banished. So that's always a tricky one for your opponent to try and figure out. The other thing you can do is during either player's turn, when a spell, trap, or monster effect is activated, you can tribute this card to negate the activation and destroy it. I run one TG Wonder Magician. Yeah. When it's synchro summoned, it destroys a spell or trap. And then if it's destroyed, I get to draw a card and allows me to synchro summon during my opponent's turn. As a level 5, I think that's pretty good with 19 attack and 0 defense. Then I run one Metalfoes Horus, level 6, synchro, 2/3 attack, 16 defense. So if this is synchro summoned, you can activate these effects depending on which non-tuners were used in the summon. So if a normal monster was used, then it's unaffected by other card effects this turn. If effect monster is used, then you can target one face-up card on the field and negate that card's effects. And if a pendulum monster was used, your opponent chooses one monster they control and gives control of it to you, but it cannot attack that turn. With Treasure, Zefraxi, and Bian, Zefraxi makes Bian a tuner. They sync together. Zefraxi is now the non-tuner in this equation, and it's both an effect monster and a pendulum monster, which means that it can target one card and nullify its effects, monster, spell, or trap, or pendulum. And then, because it's also pendulum, it can make your opponent give you a monster that they control. So then we get on to, speaking of Yang Zings, we have two of my favorites. We have Yazi, Even of the Yang Zing. This 2/6 attack, 2/1 defense is a very, very solid card in any deck, let alone this deck. Its first effect, its own effect, is it cannot be targeted by your opponent's card effects. Amazing. The other thing you can do is you can target one Yang Zing monster you control and one card your opponent controls and destroy them. And then if this card is destroyed by battle or by card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a worm from your deck in defense mode. So not just Yang Zings, but any worm. I mean, for this deck it will be Yang Zings, but anyway. Then also, the counter to it, we have Baxir, Brightness of the Yang Zing. This is one of my favorites, one of my aces in the hole. It's got a 2/3 attack and 2/6 defense, fairly solid. But what makes it a good card is when this card is synchro summoned, you can target cards on the field up to the number of different original attributes of worm monsters used in the synchro summon and shuffle them into the deck. The other thing you can do, which is slightly more generic, is once per turn, it can target one card you control and one level 4 lower monster in the graveyard. You destroy the card on the field and you summon back the monster from the graveyard. Then we have Draco, Berserker of the Tenyi, a more recent edition. It's a 3k attack and 0 defense. This is much more of a beat stick than the others, with the additional abilities of when your opponent activates a monster effect, you can banish that card. So it's always a lovely little addition. And if it attacks and destroys an effect monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, it will gain the attack of the destroyed monster, its original attack, that is. And it can also make a second attack on a monster during that battle phase. And that attack gain is permanent, which means that it will just continuously, if you have effect monsters, that is, just continuously gain the attack and just keep attacking. Finally, for Yang Zing and a friend to everyone, we have Chao Feng, Phantom of the Yang Zing, which is the top Yang Zing for synchros as far as they're concerned. While this synchro summon monster is on the field, your opponent cannot activate monster effects with the same original attribute as the Yang Zings used in the summon. It also has two more effects. One is that if it destroys a monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, it can special summon a worm from your deck in defense position with the same original attribute as whatever you destroyed. The other thing is that if itself is destroyed by battle card effect, it allows you to add a tuner from your deck to your hand. We have Nirvana High Paladin, which is a Synchro Pendulum, 3,300 attack, 2,500 defense. It's level 10, and it requires a tuner and one non-tuner Synchro monster. But it also has another way to summon it, which is that if you have a Pendulum monster, which is Pendulum summoned, you can use that as the tuner, regardless of whether it is a tuner or not, to Synchro summon this card. And when you do, you can target one card in your graveyard and add it to your hand. It's a scale 8 as well. Also, when this destroys a monster by battle, it can halve your opponent's life points, which is absolutely mad when you think about it. And then if it's in the monster zone and it's destroyed by battle or card effect, it can then pop into the Pendulum zone, which then if a Pendulum monster attacks, for that battle it cannot be destroyed and you take no battle damage. But at the end of the damage step, if the Pendulum monster you controlled attacked, all monsters your opponent controls lose attack equal to the attack of that monster until the end of the turn, which allows you to basically pick a big beater on your opponent's side of the field and just hit it with smaller Pendulum monsters till it's weak enough to beat through. And that's it for the synchros. So as I say, let's go into it. So last three are links. Start off with Cross Sheep. Yeah, solid, good card. It does different things when when monsters are summoned to the zones it points to of a particular type. So if they're Ritual, draw 2 cards and discard 2. Doesn't really apply. Fusion, which does apply. If you're Fusion summoned, you can special summon a level 4 or lower monster from your graveyard. So yeah, that allows you to bring back more Yang Zings or even Metalfoes. Synchro allows all monsters you control to gain 700 attack, which is pretty good because you're allowed to bring back a Yang Zing and then power up all of your monsters to beat through your opponents. And if you're XYZ, which doesn't necessarily apply here, but can do, all monsters your opponent controls lose 700. So if you also manage to XYZ summon to a zone it points to, then yeah, you can weaken your opponent even further. One of the Crystron Halefabrics, whatever it's called, the Crystron Link, 1500 attack, requires 2 monsters, including a tuner, which is when it is link summoned, you can special summon a level 3 or lower tuner from your hand or deck in defense position. Then, during your opponent's main phase or battle phase, you can banish this card you control to special summon a Synchro tuner from your extra deck, which in this case would be TG Wonder Magician. And since it counts as a Synchro summon, TG's effect then goes off to block spells and traps and gives you some extra fun. And then finally, I run Apollosa Bow of the Goddess, which is a link 4. Requires 2+ monsters with different names, except tokens, which is fine because you don't really run any tokens. And yeah, it's Apollosa. It allows you to reduce its attack by 800 to negate effects once per turn. And it can do that until it's out of attack. And since we are Yang Zings and Metalfoes and we float like mad and can summon back from the graveyard, we can get 4 monsters on the board pretty easily to give it an attack boost. Yeah, and that's it.
Yeah, as I say, I've played against this a few times. It definitely has given me nightmares a few times. Yeah. I also really like the way that you've got so many variety of levels in your synchro engine, because it means bricking is quite a difficult thing, because you can always put something out of your extra deck onto the field almost. Seeing as you've got, I think, everything from the level 4 all the way up to level 10.
Yeah, I've got level 4, level 5, level 6, level 7, level 8, level 9, and level 10, yeah.
Yeah, so that means that all you need is any of your tuners and any of your non-tuners, and you're going to be able to put something on the board. and all the monsters you've got in your extra deck are relatively decent boss monsters. Maybe barring Herald, but even Herald's going to give some people trouble, as you say.
Yeah, and especially if you have Herald and Baxter, if Herald goes down, you can use Baxter to pop it back up.
Yeah.
And you even in earlier versions of Pure Yang Zings, which I may share with the world, I used to run 2 Herald, so that I could summon out 1 Herald and Baxter, and then next turn I'll be able to summon another one, using Baxter to blow up the Yang Zing to summon back Herald. The Yang Zing would go off, and so would Chewin in my graveyard, which meant Chewin and, say, I think it's Bian in this case, came back. That allowed me to synchro summon into another one, which was then immune for battle. Yeah. So then I had 2 Heralds on board, which is counts for 2 negates plus that limitation on my opponent and me as well, of having cards sent from the main deck and extra and hand get banished. Thankfully, that doesn't tend to happen in this deck with the way it's run. I mean, sure, the Metalfoes fusions do allow you to fusion from the hand, but you just bear that in mind. You generally fusion from the field anyway, which means that you're not subject to Herald's effects.
Right. Well, this has been great, Chris. I'd like to thank you for being with us today.
No worries. Thank you very much for the invite.
And for all of you watching at home, I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Make sure you leave us a like, leave us a comment, leave us a subscribe, and I will see you guys at the next video.